Don't move. Immigration enforcement.
I'm the fire chief. This is my station.
I need to see immigration documents.
My badge is right here. Look at it.
Hands behind your back. Now.
I've served this city for 31 years.
There is a particular kind of betrayal that happens when a man who has spent 3 decades running into burning buildings so that strangers might live is placed in handcuffs inside his own fire station by an agent of the federal government who looked at his skin and decided that 31 years of service, a gold chief's insignia, a wall of commendations, and the fact that he was standing in the building that bears his unit number meant less than the color of his face. On February 11, 2025, at Fire Station 7 in Aurora, Colorado, Battalion Chief Darren Michael Okafor, a 58-year-old black man born and raised 4 miles from the station where he would be handcuffed, was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent Kyle Breslin during what Breslin would later describe as a routine proximity sweep of a neighborhood ICE had flagged for enforcement activity. Chief Okafor was not in that neighborhood. He was inside a municipal fire station, in full department uniform, surrounded by the equipment and personnel he commanded. The encounter lasted 22 minutes. It was captured in its entirety by 6 fire station security cameras. It would cost the federal government $8.4 million. The morning of February 11, 2025, broke at 6:52 a.m. over Aurora, Colorado, with a temperature of 29 degrees and a thin layer of frost still clinging to the windshields of the personal vehicles parked in the gravel lot beside Fire Station 7. The station sits at the corner of East Colfax Avenue and Peoria Street, a stretch of Aurora that has undergone significant demographic change over the past 2 decades. The surrounding blocks, now home to a mix of East African restaurants, Vietnamese grocery stores, a Salvadoran bakery, and 3 churches that hold services in languages other than English. Fire Station 7 has served this neighborhood since 1974, and its engine bay doors open onto Colfax with the kind of institutional permanence that signals something older than the businesses that come and go around it. The apparatus floor was clean. Engine 7 and Ladder 3 sat in their bays, freshly washed from the previous night's medical call. The shift had changed at 7 a.m., and B shift was settling in. 11 firefighters, 2 lieutenants, and Battalion Chief Darren Okafor, who had arrived at 6:41 a.m. as he did every morning, 19 minutes before he was required to, because that was who Darren Okafor was. Before we continue, where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments, and if this is your first time here, consider subscribing. We cover cases like this every week, and every subscription helps these stories reach the people who need to hear them. Darren Michael Okafor was born on September 14, 1966, at the University of Colorado Hospital in Aurora. The same hospital his fire crews would later transport patients to thousands of times over 3 decades. He was the second of 4 children born to Michael Okafor Sr., a Nigerian immigrant who arrived in Denver in 1959 on an engineering scholarship to the Colorado School of Mines, and Patricia Okafor, née Williams, a 3rd-generation Coloradan whose grandfather had been one of the first black railroad workers in the state. Darren grew up on Galena Street, 4 miles south of the station where he would eventually be handcuffed. He attended Rangeview High School, where he lettered in track and field and volunteered with the Aurora Youth Fire Academy, a program that introduced high school students to fire service careers. He enrolled at Metropolitan State University of Denver in 1984, studied fire science administration, and graduated in 1988 with a 3.7 GPA. He was hired by the Aurora Fire Department on June 3, 1988, assigned to Station 12 as a probationary firefighter. He was 21 years old. Over the next 31 years, Darren Okafor rose through every rank the department offered: firefighter, engineer, lieutenant, captain, battalion chief. He completed his paramedic certification in 1993, his fire officer designation in 1998, and his executive fire officer program through the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland, in 2007. He had been directly involved in the rescue of more than 200 people over the course of his career, a number tracked by the department's internal records and confirmed during the legal proceedings that followed. He had received the Medal of Valor in 2003 for entering a collapsing residential structure on East 6th Avenue and carrying out 2 children and their grandmother. He had received the department's life-saving award 4 separate times. He had trained over 150 recruits. He had served as the department's representative to the Colorado Fire Chiefs Association for 6 consecutive years. His photograph hung in the main hallway of Aurora Fire Administration headquarters. He was, by every metric the fire service uses to measure a career, among the most accomplished and respected firefighters in the history of the Aurora Fire Department. He was wearing his department polo with gold battalion chief insignia the morning Kyle Breslin walked into his station. Kyle Breslin had been an ICE enforcement and removal operations field agent for 9 years, assigned to the Denver field office since 2019. He was 41 years old, a former corrections officer from Weld County who had transitioned to federal immigration enforcement in 2016. His personnel file, which would be produced during discovery, contained 14 formal complaints filed between 2017 and 2024, 9 of which alleged racial profiling, 3 alleged excessive use of authority during workplace raids, and 2 alleged failure to follow proper identification verification procedures. None of the 14 complaints had resulted in disciplinary action beyond a single written counseling in 2020 for what his supervisor described as overly aggressive contact initiation. Breslin's enforcement statistics for the 18-month period preceding the incident showed that he had initiated 213 field contacts, 74% of which involved Black or Latino individuals, and of those contacts, 81% resulted in no immigration violation of any kind. That is a rate of 4 out of every 5 people stopped by Kyle Breslin, turning out to be exactly who and what they said they were. His partner that morning was Agent Lucia Ferrano, a 3-year agent who had transferred to the Denver office from the El Paso sector 8 months earlier. Ferrano would later testify that she had concerns about Breslin's approach, but did not voice them at the scene. Fire Station 7 operates a 6-camera security system installed in 2021 as part of a citywide municipal building security upgrade. Camera 1 covers the apparatus floor from the northeast ceiling corner. Camera 2 covers the apparatus floor from the southwest ceiling corner. Camera 3 covers the front bay doors from an exterior-mounted position above the station's address plaque. Camera 4 covers the rear parking lot. Camera 5 covers the main hallway and administrative offices. Camera 6 covers the kitchen and common area. All 6 cameras record continuously in 1080p resolution with audio capture within a 20-foot radius. The footage is stored on a local server with 90-day retention and backed up to Aurora's municipal cloud system every 24 hours. On the morning of February 11th, 2025, cameras 1, 2, and 3 captured the entirety of the encounter between Chief Okafor and Agent Breslin. Camera 1's audio feed captured every word spoken on the apparatus floor from the moment Breslin entered the open bay door at 7:38 a.m. to the moment he removed the handcuffs at 8 a.m. At 7:38 a.m., Camera 3 shows 2 figures approaching the open bay door of Station 7 from the Colfax Avenue sidewalk. Breslin in the lead, tactical vest with ICE insignia visible, walking at a pace the footage analysis would later describe as accelerated approach. Ferrano is 3 steps behind him, her hand resting on her duty belt. They do not stop at the threshold. They do not announce themselves to the station crew visible inside. Breslin walks directly onto the apparatus floor and approaches Chief Okafor, who is standing near the front bumper of Engine 7 reviewing the morning's staffing sheet on a clipboard. Camera 1 captures what happens next. Breslin raises his hand and says, "Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I need to see identification." Okafor looks up from his clipboard, sets his coffee mug on the bumper of Engine 7, and says, "Good morning. I'm Battalion Chief Darren Okafor. This is Fire Station 7. Can I help you with something?" Breslin does not acknowledge the introduction. He repeats, "I need to see immigration documents. Are you a United States citizen?" Okafor looks down at the gold insignia on his chest, then back at Breslin, and says, "I'm the battalion chief of this station. I've been with Aurora Fire for 31 years. My credentials are right here on my uniform. Breslin says, "I'm not asking about your uniform. I'm asking for documentation. Do you have a passport or green card on your person?" Camera 1 captures Okafor's expression shifting. The footage shows what his attorney would later describe as the face of a man processing the realization that his uniform, his rank, and his presence inside his own station are not enough. Okafor says, "Sir, I was born in Aurora. I'm an American citizen. I'm standing inside a municipal fire station in my department-issued uniform with my rank insignia visible. What is happening right now?" Breslin says, "I'm conducting a lawful immigration inquiry. If you can't produce documentation, I'm going to need you to cooperate." Okafor turns toward the hallway and calls out, "Lieutenant Chen, can you come out here, please?" Before Lieutenant David Chen can respond, Breslin steps forward, takes Okafor by the left wrist and says, "Sir, I need you to turn around and place your hands behind your back." Camera 2 captures the moment from the opposite angle. Breslin, pulling the handcuffs from his belt while Okafor, still holding his clipboard in his right hand, says, "You are handcuffing a battalion chief inside his own fire station." The clipboard falls to the floor. The sound echoes off the concrete walls of the apparatus bay. The timestamp reads 7:41 a.m., 3 minutes. That is how long it took for a 31-year veteran of the Aurora Fire Department to go from reviewing his morning staffing sheet to being placed in handcuffs inside the station he commanded. The sound of the clipboard hitting the floor brought B Shift out of the kitchen. Lieutenant David Chen was the first into the apparatus bay, followed by firefighter-paramedic Angela Reeves, engineer Marcus Washington, and 4 other crew members. Camera 1 captures Chen stopping mid-stride when he sees the handcuffs. He says, "What are you doing?" "That's our chief. That's Battalion Chief Okafor." Breslin, without turning to face Chen, says, "This is a federal immigration matter. Please step back." Chen does not step back. He says, "He's the battalion chief of this station. He's been here longer than any of us. What immigration matter?" Angela Reeves, a 12-year veteran and paramedic, is already holding her phone. She begins recording at 7:42 a.m. Camera 1 and Reeves' phone footage now capture the encounter from 2 angles simultaneously. Marcus Washington, a 9-year engineer who had served under Okafor for 6 of those years, walks to the hallway and returns with a framed photograph from the station's Wall of Honor. A photo of Okafor receiving the Medal of Valor in 2003, shaking hands with the mayor of Aurora. Washington holds the photograph at arm's length, facing Breslin, and says, "This is who you handcuffed. That is the mayor of Aurora pinning a medal on him for saving a family from a burning house." Breslin glances at the photograph. Camera 1 captures his jaw tightening. He does not respond. He does not remove the handcuffs. Agent Ferrano, still standing near the bay door, shifts her weight from one foot to the other. Camera 3 captures her looking at Breslin, then at Okafor, then at the floor. She says nothing. At 7:46 a.m., Lieutenant Chen calls the Aurora Fire Department administrative offices and reaches Deputy Chief Karen Morales. He tells her what is happening. Morales says she will be there in 12 minutes. At 7:49 a.m., firefighter Reeves' phone footage captures Breslin speaking into his radio. The audio is partially obscured, but the words "uncooperative" and "possible foreign national" are audible. Chief Okafor, standing in handcuffs in his own apparatus bay, surrounded by his own crew, says, "I have served this city for 31 years. I have carried people out of burning buildings. I have been to more funerals for fallen firefighters than I can count. And you are calling me a foreign national on my own apparatus floor." At 7:53 a.m., Deputy Chief Karen Morales arrives in her department SUV. Camera 3 captures her walking through the bay door at a pace that her deposition would later describe as controlled but furious. She is in full Class A uniform. She sees the handcuffs. She walks directly to Breslin and says, "I am Deputy Chief Karen Morales of the Aurora Fire Department. You have placed handcuffs on Battalion Chief Darren Okafor, a 31-year veteran of this department, inside a municipal fire station. Remove the handcuffs immediately, or I will contact the Aurora Police Department and the United States Attorney's Office within the next 60 seconds. Breslin looks at Morales, looks at her insignia, looks at Okafor, and for the first time, the camera captures something shifting in his posture. what the footage analyst would later describe as the physical recognition of a mistake. He removes the handcuffs at 8 a.m. The encounter lasted 22 minutes. Okafor does not rub his wrists. He does not raise his voice. He picks up his clipboard from the floor, looks at Breslin and says, "I want your name, your badge number, and the name of your supervisor." Breslin provides them. Morales writes them down. The crew of B Shift stands in a semicircle behind their chief. Nobody speaks. The only sound is Angela Reeves' phone, still recording. Let me ask you this. If a battalion chief in full uniform inside his own fire station, surrounded by his own crew, with his photograph on the wall, and 31 years of service to his name cannot be recognized as an American doing his job, then who is safe? Comment below. I want to know what you think should happen to the agents involved. Within 3 hours, Angela Reeves's phone footage had been posted to the Aurora Firefighters Local 1290 social media page. Within 8 hours, it had 2.1 million views. Within 24 hours, it had been picked up by the Denver Post, 9 News, CNN, and the Washington Post. The Aurora Fire Department issued a statement at 4 p.m. on February 11th, calling the incident an unconscionable violation of the dignity of one of our most decorated and respected leaders. The Colorado Fire Chiefs Association issued a statement the following morning. Chief Okafor himself held a press conference on February 13th in which he said, "I am not telling my story because I want sympathy. I am telling my story because there are people in this city who look like me, who do the work I do, who serve the communities I serve, and who are being told every day by encounters like this one that none of it matters. That is what I am here to talk about." He retained counsel the same week. On March 4th, 2025, Chief Darren Okafor filed a federal civil rights lawsuit in the United States District Court for the District of Colorado, case number 125C-V-004-87-RBJ, through his attorney, Nadine Cassell-Wright, a former assistant United States attorney, turned civil rights litigator with 18 years of experience and a record of 7 federal civil rights verdicts exceeding $5 million each. The complaint named Agent Kyle Breslin individually, Agent Lucia Ferrano individually, the Denver Field Office of ICE, and the Department of Homeland Security. The claims included violations of the Fourth Amendment right against unreasonable seizure, violations of the Fifth Amendment right to due process, violations of 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 through State-Federal Joint Action Doctrine, a Bivens action for constitutional violations by federal agents, and claims under the Federal Tort Claims Act for negligent supervision and training. The complaint sought $4.2 million in compensatory damages covering emotional distress, reputational harm, and interference with professional duties, and $8 million in punitive damages reflecting the pattern of conduct and the failure of institutional oversight. Total damages sought, $12.2 million. Discovery opened in April 2025 and produced 3,400 pages of documents, including Breslin's complete personnel file, internal ICE communications regarding the Aurora proximity sweep operation, and the statistical breakdown of Breslin's 213 field contacts over the preceding 18 months. The statistics told a story that no individual incident could tell alone. Of the 213 contacts, 158 involved Black or Latino individuals, 74%. Of those 158 contacts, 128 resulted in no immigration violation whatsoever. An 81% rate of stopping people who had every legal right to be exactly where they were. Of the 14 formal complaints in Breslin's file, 9 alleged racial profiling. None had resulted in meaningful discipline. The internal communications revealed that the February 11th proximity sweep had been authorized for a 6-block commercial corridor along East Colfax. But Fire Station 7 was a municipal building, not a commercial address. And Breslin's own supervisor had emailed the field team at 6:15 a.m. that morning stating, "Municipal buildings, schools, and churches are excluded from sweep activity per standing directive." Breslin had entered the fire station anyway. The depositions were taken over 3 days in June 2025 in the offices of Castle Wright and Harmon, in downtown Denver. Agent Breslin's deposition lasted 4 hours and 22 minutes. The relevant exchange began in the second hour. Attorney Cassell Wright asked, "Agent Breslin, when you approached Chief Okafor on the apparatus floor, what was he wearing?" Breslin answered, "A polo shirt, some kind of uniform polo." Cassell Wright asked, "Did that polo shirt have any insignia or identification on it?" Breslin answered, "I believe there was something embroidered on the chest area." Cassell Wright asked, "That something was a gold battalion chief insignia of the Aurora Fire Department, correct?" Breslin answered, "I didn't examine it closely." Cassell Wright asked, "You were close enough to place handcuffs on his wrist, but not close enough to read the insignia on his chest?" Breslin answered, "I was focused on the interaction." Cassell Wright asked, "When Chief Okafor told you he was the battalion chief, what did you do with that information?" Breslin answered, "I continued my inquiry." Cassell Wright asked, "When Lieutenant Chen told you that was Battalion Chief Okafor, what did you do?" Breslin answered, "I continued my inquiry." Cassell Wright asked, "When firefighter Washington showed you a framed photograph of Chief Okafor receiving the Medal of Valor from the mayor of Aurora, what did you do?" Breslin answered, "I noted it." Cassell Wright asked, "You noted it, but you did not remove the handcuffs." Breslin answered, "I was waiting for verification." Cassell Wright asked, "What verification were you waiting for, Agent Breslin?" "You were inside a municipal fire station." The man was in uniform. His crew identified him by name and rank. A photograph of him receiving a medal from the mayor was physically held in front of your face. "What additional verification did you require?" Breslin answered, "I wanted to confirm through my chain of command." Cassell Wright asked, "Did you radio your supervisor to confirm?" Breslin answered, "Not at that time." Cassell Wright asked, "Did you run Chief Okafor's name through any law enforcement database?" Breslin answered, "No." Cassell Wright asked, "Did you contact the Aurora Fire Department dispatch to confirm his identity?" Breslin answered, "No." Cassell Wright asked, "Did you contact your field office?" Breslin answered, "No." Cassell Wright asked, "So the verification you were waiting for, you took no steps to actually obtain it?" Breslin answered, "I was assessing the situation." Cassell Wright asked, "For 22 minutes. You assessed the situation for 22 minutes while a decorated battalion chief stood in handcuffs inside his own fire station. Is that your testimony?" Breslin answered, "Yes." Agent Ferrano's deposition lasted 2 hours and 40 minutes and was, in many ways, more damaging to the government's defense. Cassell Wright asked, "Agent Ferrano, at any point during the encounter, did you believe Chief Okafor might actually be an undocumented immigrant?" Ferrano answered, "I had doubts early on." Cassell Wright asked, "When did those doubts begin?" Ferrano answered, "When he identified himself as the battalion chief, and I could see the insignia on his shirt." Cassell Wright asked, "That was within the first 2 minutes." Ferrano answered, "Approximately, yes." Cassell Wright asked, "And you were present for the remaining 20 minutes of the encounter?" Ferrano answered, "Yes." Cassell Wright asked, "During those 20 minutes, did you say anything to Agent Breslin about your doubts?" Ferrano answered, "No." Cassell Wright asked, "Did you suggest he verify Chief Okafor's identity through any of the methods available to you?" Ferrano answered, "No." Cassell Wright asked, "Did you intervene in any way?" Ferrano answered, "No." Cassell Wright asked, "Why not?" Ferrano answered, "Agent Breslin was the senior agent. It was his contact. I deferred to his judgment." Cassell Wright asked, "You deferred to his judgment even though your own judgment told you he was wrong?" Ferrano paused for 11 seconds. The court reporter noted the pause. Ferrano answered, "Yes." Chief Okafor's testimony was taken on the third day. He spoke for 90 minutes without interruption. The portion that would be cited in the settlement memorandum read, in his own words, "I have spent 31 years of my life protecting the people of Aurora. I have crawled through smoke so thick I could not see my own gloves. I have held people's hands while they died, waiting for a transport that was 3 minutes too late. I have buried 4 colleagues. I have trained young men and women who went on to become chiefs themselves. And on February 11th, 2025, I was handcuffed inside my own station. because a federal agent looked at my face and decided that none of that was possible. That is not about me. That is about every black firefighter, every black police officer, every black doctor and nurse and teacher who puts on a uniform and walks out the door every morning knowing that the uniform might not be enough. I did everything right. I identified myself. I showed my credentials. My crew identified me. My photograph was on the wall, and it was not enough. That is what this case is about. It is about the distance between what this country says it values and how it treats the people who live those values every single day. Supporting testimony came from 7 colleagues, the president of the Colorado Fire Chiefs Association, and a survey conducted by the Aurora Firefighters Local 1290 in March 2025 that found 67% of firefighters of color in the department reported having experienced at least one incident of being questioned about their legitimacy or authority while in uniform by someone outside the department. The survey had a 78% response rate among the department's 112 firefighters and officers of color. Settlement negotiations began in August 2025. The government's risk assessment, produced in an internal memorandum that was later partially disclosed, calculated that a jury trial in the District of Colorado carried a 79% probability of a plaintiff verdict based on the strength of the video evidence, the deposition testimony, and Breslin's documented pattern of complaints. The estimated jury award range was $9 million to $16 million. The government offered $6.5 million. Castle Wright countered at $11 million. The parties agreed on $8.4 million on September 3, 2025, $5.1 million in compensatory damages, and $3.3 million in punitive damages. The settlement was processed on September 19, 2025. Chief Okafor received the funds on September 26, 2025, all within the same calendar year. Agent Kyle Breslin was terminated from ICE on October 2, 2025, 233 days after the incident. Agent Lucia Ferrano received a 60-day suspension without pay and was transferred to a non-field administrative role at the ICE Denver field office. The ICE Denver field office director issued a formal apology to Chief Okafor and the Aurora Fire Department on October 8, 2025. The Department of Homeland Security Inspector General opened a review of the Denver field office's supervision practices, specifically examining how 14 complaints against a single agent over 7 years had resulted in only 1 written counseling. In November 2025, the Aurora City Council passed Resolution 2025 RL41 by a 10-to-1 vote, establishing the Municipal Employees Protection Protocol, a policy requiring federal agents to coordinate with department leadership before conducting any enforcement activity inside Aurora municipal buildings. The Colorado General Assembly introduced House Bill 26-1134 in January 2026, proposing statewide protections for public employees from uncoordinated federal enforcement actions in government workplaces. The bill was co-sponsored by 14 representatives and passed its first committee hearing on February 4, 2026. Chief Okafor used a portion of the settlement to establish the Okafor First Responders Equity Fund, a nonprofit providing scholarships and mentorship to young people of color pursuing careers in fire service, emergency medicine, and law enforcement. The fund awarded its first 8 scholarships in January 2026, each worth $15,000, to students at Metropolitan State University of Denver, the same institution where Okafor had earned his fire science degree 37 years earlier. He also donated $200,000 to the Aurora Youth Fire Academy, the same program that had introduced him to the fire service when he was a teenager on Galena Street. He returned to full duty at Station 7 on February 24, 2025, 13 days after the incident. He has not missed a shift since. On the morning of February 11, 2025, Darren Michael Okafor woke up at 5:30 a.m. in the house he has owned for 22 years, drove the same route he has driven for 11 years, and arrived at Fire Station 7 at 6:41 a.m. to begin what he expected to be a routine Tuesday shift. By 8 a.m., he had been handcuffed, humiliated, and released inside the station he had commanded for 7 years, The station where his crews had responded to 4,200 emergency calls under his leadership. The station where his photograph hung on the wall. The station 4 miles from the house where he was born. The encounter lasted 22 minutes. The lawsuit lasted 7 months. The settlement was $8.4 million. The policy changes will take years to measure. And somewhere in Aurora, Colorado, Black firefighters still clip their badges to their chests every morning and wonder if the insignia will be enough, if the uniform they earned, the rank they achieved, and the people they saved will matter more than the assumptions of a stranger who never bothered to look. $8.4 million, says the system failed Darren Okafor. The question is whether $8.4 million is enough to make the system stop failing the next one. If this story mattered to you, subscribe to this channel. Every case we cover is a case that someone tried to keep quiet, and every subscriber makes it harder to look away. We will see you in the next one.